everybody. Welcome back to the Star Wars Expanded Universe. Now read up by Disney, or Lucasfilm, whichever way you slice it. Legends. Today I have for you Knights of the Old Republic, War, because Dawn of the Jedi had to have that, this had to have that, and Legacy had to have that for some reason. Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic, War. So that's 5 issues. And then a short story from Lost Tribes of the Sith. This one is titled Sentinel. So non-spoiler wise, obviously Kotor War takes place during a war. It's not the Jedi Civil War. That hasn't happened yet. As far as I know, there is no media, no books, no comics, no nothing that actually takes place during the time where Revan is a Sith Lord, and we get to actually view that. We only get the events after the fact and before. This is during the Mandalorian War. You don't get to see Revan or any familiar characters. They're off doing their own thing. This is, in the war, but still relatively self-contained. Zane he was going to head home to say hi to his family, because he does have a family, and because he's not a Jedi, and he's not in the army, technically, he's just a civilian, by technicality, he can be conscripted, so he gets drafted to the war, but he vows to not kill anyone. He's going to, he's not a pacifist. A pacifist won't harm anyone, right? He'll hurt you, he just won't kill you. He refuses to do that, and he would prefer not to hurt you either, if that can be avoided. And so, there's a faction of Jedi, I'll say, that are not like Revan. They're different in how they disagree with the main Jedi. And that's pretty much all I'll say for non-spoilers. As for the short story, this short story, Sentinel, from Lost Tribes of the Sith, picks up where the last one left off. We're following the same characters. I know this spans like several thousand years, so we'll see different characters, I imagine. But this follows the same characters from the last story, from the 5th story. And it's fine. I like how it ended. I thought it was okay. Still nothing grand. That one does mention the Jedi Civil War, so that happens after the fact. And that is about it for non-spoilers. If you don't want spoilers, it's time for you to get out. So we have the Mandalorian Knights. That's mainly, this is going to be a very short video compared to my other videos. The Mandalorian Knights are basically Jedi Knights that have defected to the Mandalorian side. It's actually really interesting because, I feel like this is the first time we really get to see, what Mandalorians think about the war and how their culture and society really is and how they feel, because, if they don't kill you, if you accept surrender, you're adopted. You become one of the Mandalorians, and I can see why that would appeal to a lot of people. Family isn't blood, necessarily. It's the people. So, if you accept their traditions, their beliefs, you become one of them. And so, Revan too has issues with the Jedi Council. He doesn't like that they want to be so non-included. It's like America with World War II. They just didn't want to get involved, right? That's kind of the Jedi Council right now. And Revan's like, no, we have people that we need to protect. So it goes off on the offensive. And, but this Jedi, he thinks that, even with Revan's doing, it's not enough. And that the Republic is too corrupt to protect. Funny how this is, like 3,000 years before the prequels, and yet people still think the Republic is corrupt, but it won't be nearly as corrupt as it will be when Palpatine's the one in the Senate. I am the Senate. But but yeah, so you have these Jedi Knights who are defected and have joined the Mandalorians to fight. I was actually surprised if we didn't get to see Revan because I imagine that would have pissed him off. But um, in fact, the Jedi, the main Jedi we focus on in this one, I mean, the main one we focus on is Zane, but the one that defected the Mandalorian side, he reminds me a lot of Dooku. It's like poetry; it rhymes. He sees the Republic as very corrupt, and he has a lot of issues with the politics of the day, and a lot of issues with the Jedi. And Dooku is very similar. I don't think he would have joined up with the Mandalorians, but he has a lot of issues with the Jedi. He has a lot of issues with the Republic. He sees it as very corrupt and hypocritical, and he doesn't like that. And so he leaves later to become, as we know, Sith Lord Count Dooku. But I just find it interesting because even him, too, Dooku, he, with his unique perspective, he's a bit too cold. However, that is why Qui-Gon Jinn is so different from most Jedi. He agrees with them, but he's also willing to bend things a little bit, And it's just interesting to think that these problems arose even back here. And I get it. I get why this guy thinks this way, but clearly he's in the wrong. But I really enjoy that because it just, again, I love that. It's, it's not the same, but it's similar to stuff that we'll see in the future. And I just like how that contrasts, I guess. And this same Jedi, I forget his name, I should have wrote it down, but he falls in love with Amando, but the Republic puts a detonation that blows her up with her unborn child inside her, and that just fully makes him fully devoted to the Mandalorian cause, and again, that's really understandable, and Zane's, of course, they're doing his thing, being great, really sticking true to his beliefs too. He refuses to kill anyone, and he gets really pissed when people go against what he says and kills someone. Because he's only, ever, I don't know if he technically did kill that person, the Kamasi, but if so, that'll be the only person ever. So, and I enjoyed that. His big plan and one of the issues was to pretend that there's this fake thing called Jedi brain fever. Love it, because he kept mentioning earlier, he's like, don't forget the sewage or the stupid stew that we were eating. Don't forget to bring the rat stew or whatever. And then that's what ended up being. And then there's, of course, the final issue. They head to Dantooine. The Jedi guy is gonna steal, the Jedi Mandalorian is gonna steal all of the Jedi, but Zane causes problems for him, and the Mandalore himself is like, these Jedi are, they're not producing results, and since they've joined, there's been more problems than it's worth, so we're just abandoning them. And so, the Jedi that side of the Mandalorians, they get sent to jail, and Zane goes to see his family and his girlfriend, Jeriel. And that's kind of where the series ends. And then, then we get to the short story. But, before that, off screen, what we only really get to hear about, we never get to see, essentially, Revan and Malik, they are going against the Mandalorians and, going on the offensive, becoming more and more brutal with their tactics to the point where the Mandalorians would be proud with some of the stuff that they're pulling off. Because, Revan is... I have some contention with people who say he'd be like, oh yeah, him versus Darth Vader, he would win. Maybe. I don't know about that. Darth Vader's pretty powerful, and I'll give it that Revan's powerful too, but you can't include the games because you have to ignore the games because the games, are as canon, so the events happen, but probably not the way you played it. But Revan, there's without a doubt that Revan is a great tactician. If you said Revan versus Thrawn, now that would be more interesting. Just to battle the brains, because Revan's smart. But he's becoming more and more, violent, and caring less and less. So they're heading toward the dark side. Him and Malik. Malik's all for it. Malik was worse than Revan. But eventually, they do win the entire war. They eventually you know, we'll get to it when we talk about Kotor too, but they get to this place called Malachor 5. There is a Jedi who's come to help Revan. Her name is Mitra Surik. She's the main character of Kotor 2, because canonically you would play as a female, and in Kotor 1 you'd play as a dude, because Revan's a dude. But anyway, so he's with her, they do that, that happens. Eventually they win, and technically he's not using dark side abilities, he's just being rather violent. However, he did win the war, so the Republic is, of course, happy with Revan and Malak. And the Jedi are like, we're not really happy with how you did that, but you did win the war. Kind of an uneasy thank you. And then they kind of disappear for a year. And we'll get more into this later, but stuff happens to them, and they come back as Dark Lords of the Sith. Revan is the master, Malak is the apprentice. And we don't know how this happened. They were just the heroes of the Republic, and now they're coming back to attack it with their own Sith army. Of course, the Sith army, most of those people aren't Force users. They're just people with guns and stuff, but they work for Revan. And then at some point, Revan gets pissed at Malak, slices at his face, and, Malak's jaw gets messed up, and so he has to wear a prosthetic. And at some point, now the Jedi have to get involved, because it's clear that Revan is now a Dark Lord of the Sith. And now the Jedi are ready to intervene. They weren't ready to intervene with the Mandos because they weren't Force users, but now that, there is a Dark Lord of the Sith, they can join in again. And so they send a team with Bastila to take on Revan. And of course, Malak sees this as his Sith opportunity to, the rule of two, to now become the master and to get his own apprentice. So he betrays Revan by attacking the ship, hoping to take down the Jedi and his former master. And that is all the events you need to know before the KOTOR game. But meanwhile, while all that's going on, or at least during the Civil War, this might be before, Revan gets captured, the events of the short story Sentinel are going on. I don't really want to talk about too much. There's not too much to say. It's just continuing off of it. They decide by the end of it, the two people that we follow, the Jedi and the Sith lady, they go live in the forest, and they decide to live happily away from the Sith and not worry about the Jedi and to just focus on themselves. The end, though they do mention the Jedi Civil War during it, because he says he got a radio transmission about it, which was kind of cool. But other than that, that is about it for today. Kind of a shorter one, but that's okay. We'll have a lot to discuss when we get to the KOTOR video game, and I hope you all join me for that next time. Until then, goodbye.